Hello boys and girls, welcome to another episode of FoulkesBrau. Today we're going to continue with part 2 of our series on why we can't just go out and tune a piano. Now, there's a few things I must address with this. First of all, in the non-alcoholic South Africa, I'm drinking this non-alcoholic beer, Heineken Zero. It's not nice. So first things first, I am a trained pianist. I studied classical music as a kid, formally, not as school lessons, actually formally. So it was out of school, had nothing to do with school. I studied with what was then UNISA, the formal schools in South Africa. If you want to do that full-time, there were two. The one I remember was Pro Arte, but you needed very rich parents to attend that, and I didn't come from that sort of background, not to worry. So I studied formal music, classical music. That is my background. So I'm a pianist. Now, the thing with the piano is it's not like a guitar. It's a dead piece of wood. It's very difficult to play in the sense that you can't bend strings and do things like that. So a piano needs to be set up optimally. Now, a pianist knows a few things. A pianist will know from the touch of the key and from listening to the instrument, does it feel right? Does it play right? Does it sound right? A pianist doesn't know this snot going on in the back. Now, when I was studying, so we came to South Africa in 1983. I started studying formally as out of school. In 1984-85, I actually started studying piano, taking formal piano lessons and writing exams on theory and practical and all those things twice a year, and then became every year. And in those years, in the province or county that I used to live in, what was then southeastern Transvaal or Mpumalanga, every 6 months the piano teachers would get together and they would organize that a piano tuner would come through and he would do the whole county's pianos. Not just tuning, he would do a thing called regulation if it needed it and set the piano up, and so we would go and we would all be on the same wavelength. We are now in 2020. It's quite a few years down the line. I stopped playing formally many years ago, in the 90s already. This piano stayed with my parents after I finished school, started work, studying all those things. This piano stayed with my parents. So this piano has not been touched since I got it back, and I got it back about, let's say, 10, 11 years ago. And even then, it's not been touched, it's been played a little bit, and that's it. It just stays where it is. So I got on the internet, and after doing a little bit of homework, and I looked for a piano tuner in South Africa, but not just a piano tuner, someone that could do regulation. Now, clearly in South Africa, the guys are not good at advertising because they say we do tuning. Now, you cannot just tune this piano, and that's the reason behind the series. Never mind that I believe a pianist should have a good idea what's going on behind the bonnet, because it's easier for you to tell the person doing your work, hang on, this thing is bobbling, or it's like a multiple hammer strike, or it's it's dead and this is why you think it's dead. It's much easier for you to explain that to the person doing the work for you than what it is just to say, oh, well, it's not right. The second part of that is the guy that used to come and tune this specific piano and all the other pianos was a blind guy, old guy, very good. I don't know how he did it, it was magic, but the piano always used to come out fantastic, because he would spend time with you and discuss your playing style. So he would literally set the piano up for your feel, so your personal feel. So you develop a bond of trust with the guy. So it's not, I just phone up a piano tuner that I don't know out the blue and say, come do my machine, and oh, fuck, we hope for the best. It doesn't quite work like that. So that's why I've decided to undertake this journey, not because I want to become a piano technician or whatever. I am a pianist first and foremost, but I believe that pianists should know what is going on in here. And I've got the time, we're in lockdown, so I thought it would be a good idea. I am very handy with my hands, so the woodwork is not the issue. And I have mates that are master carpenters, if I get into trouble, that can help me with things like that. It's not to say that I will not get someone in afterwards to review what I've done, or if I get into trouble that I might not consult with one. But the point is to see if I can do this myself. I'm not advising everybody to go out and do it. But the point is to see, can I do it myself? It's not to get someone in and it's done and they just sit down and then you don't really have an appreciation for it. So, yeah, I don't want to just phone someone and say, come and do this. It's pretty pointless. Another point is the amount of work that this piano needs. So if you think of it, the last time this piano would have had any regulation or tuning is over 20 years ago. More, 25 years ago. That's a very long time. If I have to get someone out to come and do that, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg in South Africa. Never mind if I can find someone, the guys are becoming and girls are becoming very scarce. The thing is, it's going to cost me an arm and leg. It's going to cost me more than what the piano is worth. Yes, it's got ivory keys, it's an upright, it's this and this. The point being is the amount of work that the technician is going to have to do to restore it is phenomenal. So I would rather do it myself. And it's my own personal piano, so the value is, to me, is sentimental, but I'm not willing to go out and fork out maybe 15, 20,000 Rand to get to a point where that I could get to myself. It's where a technician might tell me, oh no, this is finished, you can't go any further than that, and throw it away. I'd rather get there myself, and then if I have to pay the guy for a session to come out and tell me that, then that's fine. But I haven't blown 20 grand for the guy to tell me that. Pianos are not cheap in South Africa. I mean, you could probably buy a second-hand upright Yamaha for, in a reasonable nick, for anything from 18,000 South African Rand to about 20,000 Rand. Anyway, I've talked enough about my reasoning for doing it. Just know that I believe, as a pianist, that it is a good thing to know what's going on in here, and it's a good idea to have an idea of how these mechanisms work, so that when you do get a problem, maybe you could just fix it yourself. Maybe it's not a major thing, and you can just fix it yourself, because a lot of these things are small little adjustments and small little things, and eventually we will get to the point where we tune it, and typically once you've tuned a piano, it will hold that tuning. So maybe one little note goes out and you just need to pull it up or whatever. It saves you the trip of a piano tuner. Again, I'm not trying to put them out of work. So what I'm going to do today, we're going to do a few things. We're going to set the hammer blow distance. That's the distance from the front end of the hammers to the strings, and we're going to set a thing called loss of motion. Now, hammer blow we know is the front end from the front end of the hammer to the strings. That's a fixed distance, well, roughly. I'm using some parameters I've got from I forget the name of the book, but it seems to be a universal thing, so it's to get you in the ballpark. Obviously we will go and set fine set for my feel afterwards. I'm just using the settings to get me in the ballpark. So we'll set the hammer blow, we'll set the loss of motion, and loss of motion is just a thing. Basically, we'll zoom in when we get there, but it's when I press the key and this backstop moves before it hits, before the hammer moves. So it's that little bit of play that you've got, and you don't want too much and you don't want nothing. So we're going to set that. Now what I did last night is I went through and actually set the majority of them, but I'm suspecting that when we set the hammer blow distance, that might go out. What I've decided to do is I've taken off the key stop over here, or key lock I think it's called, and the key stop here in the front end, and we can see there's a lot of dust. So what the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the action, I'm going to take out the keys, and I'm going to just give it a good vacuum. So what I'll do is I will just speed that section up. So move the camera, zoom in a little bit, we'll set that shot up, and what that'll be is just probably 10 times the speed as I take out all the keys in action and vacuum it up and clean it up. Okay, we're going to take the action out, we'll speed it up. Now, in this specific piano, there's just two little nuts on the side. We'll take them out. And of course, we're going to be very careful with it. We don't want to bend it or break it or drop it. The sustain and the mute or damper pedals, they are just rods that push up against other rods on the action, so they're not hooked, so I don't have to worry about that. What I have done is I've checked that all the bridle straps are hooked onto the bridle wires, so there's no problem. This specific action sits on a rocker. It's got a little cup holder thing on the bottom, so to take it out we just slowly move it forward like that and lift it out. So I will move that to one side. And what we'll do now is go to the fast forward mode. I'm just going to take out all the keys and we'll vacuum in it and put the keys in action back. Right, so we've vacuumed our keyboard, and what we can see, if I just rub my nail over that, yeah, so these pins, these happen to be the pins here in the middle, so your balancing pins, I believe they're called. They are very rough, so that's going to affect obviously our playing motion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of steel wool just for now, and all I'm going to do is rub them gently with the steel wool. So let me get some steel wool. I'm not going to polish them yet. I'm just going to take that little bit of roughness out. So I'm using a little bit of steel wool because I think we're going to be taking the keys out, in and out quite a bit. So let me just get some steel wool and then we'll polish them. I'll show you how I'm going to do that, and then we'll have a look-see where we are. Right, so here we are with our pins. All I'm going to do is take a bit of steel wool. Let's see, I'm sitting behind the camera. So I'm just going to rub it lightly like that. Remember, I'm just trying to get off the old lubricant or whatever they've put on, and then we can see it looks much better. So what I will do off the camera is just go through all these pins, both the balancing pins and the pins on the front end, and we'll just clean them up, take off the old lubricant. I'm not going to polish these afterwards. What I would probably do is use a bit of brass soap just to clean them. So I'm not going to do that yet, because I suspect we're going to take these pins, these keys out again when we want to align them. So let me clean up all the pins. I'll do that off camera, and I will vacuum up all this dust, and we can come back and we can have a look, see how we're going to set the hammer blow. Right, all the keys are back. We've just gone over the balance pins, the center pins, a little bit of steel wool just to take off the old lubrication. So I'm going to have to get my hands on some of that. I haven't polished them. Normally I would suspect that you would go over it with something like a metal cleaner like Brasso, something that we can get in South Africa. Very interesting. The keys are nice and light now. They mostly, all of them, you see if I'm doing this, they return back. So now we need to set our blow distance, in other words our hammer strike. Interestingly, on this piano you can see the action is out. The action will tilt forward to the soundboard, to the string board. Right, we have the action back in the piano, and yes, so let's just raise this up a little bit, we'll tilt you up a little bit. What we're going to do now is we're going to set the hammer blow, and what I'm using is I'm just using a vernier, and all I've done is I've set the distance that I require on the back. And what I'm going to do So I'm going to come to the high point, and I'm just going to put my vernier between these two hammers and measure from the front of the hammer to the strings. Whatever you do, be consistent. So try and measure, you know, not tilted up or down or whatever. Measure perpendicular or at 90 degrees. And so if I look at the front end of these two hammers to my strings, I've got a good let's say a good I would say a good 50 mils to go. Sorry, 5 mils. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom end. I'm just going to measure to the string. On the bottom end, I'm almost there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust that screw down there. Obviously I need to take the action out to do that. So I'm going to do that offline, and we'll come back when I have the hammer blow distance set. So again, all I've measured is from the front end of the hammer to the strings on both sides. There is at the back end, if I lift this hole forward, there is a felt in here, but I don't think that is used for, because that's working on the piano key, the key that makes it softer. So I don't think that is actually going to that I could use some shimming in there to do that. I don't think that's the point of that. I actually do think it's these adjustment screws down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the blow distance, and then we will come back. Of course, what I have done is the nuts that secure the action, I've made them not welded tight, but hand tight. I don't think it needs to be more than that. So let's do that, and we'll see what we end up with. Right, so we are back after setting our hammer blow. I, of course, didn't give you the right information. We adjust the tilt of, or bring this action closer to these strings by adjusting this one bolt type nutty thing over here. You turn it in to bring the action closer, and there's one on the left side. There are not many keys sticking anymore after that, which is a good thing. So slowly but surely, by doing these things, we are resolving our problems. The next thing that we need to do is to set what we call the loss of action and lost motion. And to give you an idea of that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to set the camera up, bring you down, and let's do that. Just bear with me while we come down. So let's see if you can see what key I'm going to play at the hammer associated. Yeah, okay. So I'm playing a B down here. Let's just bring you over a little bit. So you see I'm playing it very gently. And what you can see is this backstop is hitting against the hammer jack, this little back piece here, and it's So it's got quite a lot of play before it hits the hammer jack, before the hammer even moves. Let's see if you can see. You see there's quite a bit of movement in that hammer there before it even moves. Okay. Now I'm going to play the one next to it. You see there's very little play there, and then the hammer moves. So the way to adjust this, and now we're going to have to go through each and every key, is if we lift the key out, let's take it out. On the key, on this key there's a capstan, that little screw, we turn it out. So I'm just going to, because we want to raise the action, we want it to take it a little bit quicker, I'm going to turn it out by, say, half a turn. And we'll put it back in. Of course, I've gone through and did we raise that too much? Yeah, that half a turn was way too much. Because you can see the hammer's even sticking out. So I'm going to take it back a quarter of a turn. It's a little too much. There's too much. You can see as soon as I'm touching the key, the note is moving. So we take it back a little bit more. Still too much. Could it be that I didn't set the key properly in? Could be. Still too much for my liking. That's a bit better. So what you can see now, can you see it? That backstop there is moving, but the jack is not, the hammer is not. It's a little bit too sensitive for me, so I'm going to go just a little bit of more in. I like a bit of dead space with the key. There we go. A bit better. Now, okay, obviously I've got to go through each and every key and set this, so I'm not going to record it. So that will be the next step. For those of you that are curious on how it's playing, if it's playing any better than me, zoom out. What I'm going to do, we'll just move the, let's do this rather. I'm going to move the camera off to the side, and I'm going to play the same broken chord sequence, and I'm going to keep playing the same broken chord sequence over and over as we go through it. Why? Well, obviously I like it, but what it does is it gives me a good reference to remember how it felt the time before, as well as the tripod's in the way. So we'll try and get a thing of the keys, And with the hammers, I'm not going to play that high, it's going to be centered around middle C. So by playing the same broken chord sequence over and over, I get to remember the feel from what it was before and whether it's becoming easier or not. So I'm sure Billy Joel would love that we're using his C broken chord sequence for the bridge to test our piano, but it is we've got some sticking notes, just because I like this, it's got the fifth and fourths and sevenths in it, so it works. Let's see if you can hear down here. So here we've still got a bit of clicking. There we've got rattle. That's off the balance pin because we don't have that key lock back. So what we might have to do is we might have to actually go and put new bushings in the keys. Interesting, so that one's damper, it's not returning. Here's one. Way too much action again, and it's way too much action. Where's my screwdriver? I don't think that is helps you put it back properly, Craig. That's fine. Again, this is going to be your personal taste, how you want it to take off. Yeah, so what I will do now is I will go through all the keys. I'll set the what they call the lost motion so that it's to my preference. And then we'll come back into another shoot and take it from there. I think what I'm going to have to address soon is these hammers that are not parallel, and some cases that the angle is off, and it doesn't look terribly hard. The way we do it is we're going to heat up the hammer shank, the leg, and we'll heat up the glue, and then we'll just move the hammer back in place and let it cool down. So that's how we're going to address that, because I think now that we've got the hammer blow right, it's actually much more playable. It actually feels a lot better. And by setting that distance, what happened is these keys brought in a bit of lost motion, which is nice, whereas before they were way too aggressive. So I'm going to leave it there. As always, I hope you had fun. Take care, be safe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.